Diddy accuses Diageo of racism and fake diversity. We'll get to that in a moment. How does the latest lawsuit against Diddy by a woman who was 17 years old back in 2003 affect Ciroc, De Leon, and any future liquor deals Combs Enterprises might seek? Did Puffy piss off Diageo executives by putting their quote-unquote diversity, equity, inclusion charade on blast? But was he right? In this video, I will prove he might have a strong point about the diversity. I especially want sisters to pay attention because they use you as their face of diversity a lot, but you only help white women fill their diversity quota. Now, let's talk about this latest Jane Doe lawsuit. How is it related to Diageo? Many of you already know what it's about. An anonymous sister from Canada, who was 17 in 2003, was with her friends when she was recruited by Mr. Pierre Harvey, Puffy's bestie, at a Detroit nightclub lounge to fly to New York to hang out with P. Diddy in his studio. But before getting on that private jet, Pierre just had to puff that white rock, you know what I'm talking about, in the bathroom of that lounge. The lawsuit filing does not do a good job explaining how Pierre convinced her to come to the men's bathroom with him. Did he grab her arms and drag her, or did she go willingly? Did her friends not say anything to her at such a young age? Questioning this in no way justifies what happened, but we have to be objective like any true journalist or detective. The court filing simply does not specify why she went to the bathroom. Here's exactly what it says. Quote, before they left for the private jet, let me say it again, before they left for the private jet, Mr. Pierre smoked, a little white rock in the bathroom at the lounge, in which he also, did things to Miss Doe by forcing her to give him oral, unquote. Did I miss something? Okay, whatever. Let's assume somehow she was forced to go to the bathroom and the club staff looked the other way. I'm assuming that if this goes to trial, she will explain exactly how he forced her to give him top while he's puffing that rock. After they're done in the bathroom, folks, we have to make another huge assumption here. A crime was committed against her, and she knew they were trying to get her to go to New York. Even at 17, common sense tells you to call 911 afterwards. Don't go to New York at all. Plus, surely she would have told her friends who were with her, and they would have at least took her home or to the police or something. So why did she go? We don't know. Also keep in mind the big event that happened September 2001. Every airport in America, including private ones like the one mentioned in the lawsuit in Pontiac, Michigan, was under intense security. This means there is no way he somehow forced her on the jet without being noticed. Notice forcing her. Also, again, where were her friends at the airport? Perhaps the lawyer is not providing lots of detail in order to have the element of surprise in court. Who knows? But the risk of being too vague is that the public will form opinions that may work against his client. We'll see. But I'll give her the benefit of the doubt until then. Now, there's a dark pattern, or we should know it's a dark pattern emerging with all these lawsuits. Liquor is laced with these quote-unquote nightclub chemicals, if you know what I mean, to neutralize women to make it easier to SA them. Why is this important? Because this is the biggest risk a liquor company takes when using celebrities as ambassadors. We have to assume Diageo did a full background check of Diddy and knew about his dark past. As a longtime business expert myself, I can almost guarantee you they did what's called a SWOT analysis as part of their decision to hire Puffy. I've discussed this business strategy in several videos, so be sure to watch them on our YouTube channel and sign and subscribe right now. When companies do any major initiative, they use SWOT to help guide their decisions. S is for strengths, W, weaknesses, O, opportunities, and T is threats. In this case, what are Puffy's strengths? At the time, He was one of the most famous music business celebrities in the world, an A-list celebrity in the industry. His Sean John clothing label launch was hugely successful. That means his celebrity, fame, and brand were an opportunity to promote Diageo premium liquor brands like Ciroc and later De Leon. His weaknesses? Well, I think we all know some of that by now. Criminal history that included acts of violence and accusations of SA. This points to an anger and ego problem. Someone who feels entitled to have whatever he wants at any cost, as that one video of him slamming the phone after getting a deal with MTV showed. That brings us to his threats, or risk of failure that could damage the brand. With Puffy's very horrific background, there was a real risk of brand damage if he misbehaves. But by the early 2000s, the East Coast, West Coast hip-hop beef had died down. And Bad Boy Records was getting something of a makeover with that Making the Band reality show. Remember that one? This might have been a source of serious discussion among Diageo executives. They probably asked, can we trust Puffy to be mature and less volatile if we go with him? Now, at this point, I'm guessing the executives were quite divided. Some for, some against Diddy. Who could break this tie? This is where the puppet masters of Hollywood come into play. Remember that liquor and Hollywood go hand in hand, having a long history going back to the Prohibition era of the 1920s and 30s. Hollywood parties are fueled by liquor. And what better way to promote the brand than with A-list celebrities? But Diageo needed assurances from one of the top dogs about Puffy. So I think they called Clive Davis, the big gatekeeper who brought Diddy into the game in the first place, replacing Uptown with Bad Boy Records. I think Clive, or some Hollywood executive of his caliber, broke that tie and convinced Diageo that Sean Combs was worth the risk. Keep that in mind. Now let's get to Diddy's racism accusation against Diageo, that they treated Ciroc and De Leon as only for black people, instead of a broader brand like Casamigos. To many, this accusation by Diddy sounds like a stretch, more like an extortion attempt, as Diageo accused him of doing. I myself was a bit skeptical at first until I started digging into Diageo from top to bottom. And here's why he looks to be right. And that Diageo, y'all got some trouble. Y'all got some problems. You're going to have problems in court if they don't create a plan to remedy their race issue, their diversity issue, or DEI issue. When I reviewed most of their corporate videos, annual filings, websites, etc., all the public stuff that's available, I saw where they are committed to diversity and inclusion in various marketing channels and investor statements, and even look good in their commercials. But when it comes to their executives at the top, at the very top, in America and in Europe, they're not nearly as diverse as they assert. I saw mainly European people, white people, with only one Indian lady, I think she was like CFO, and an African woman in upper management in their East Coast subsidiary. Now, you know what they're relying on to make the case that they are diverse? They sure do have a lot of white female executives and upper managers. Uh-oh, Diageo, we have a problem here. For my dear sisters in particular, you gotta stop letting them use you as their mouthpieces and faces in commercials and in the media. Though y'all were the faces of, remember, welfare, who got most of the money with welfare? It was white women. When our community fought for affirmative action in the 1970s and 80s, who really benefited? White women. Some of them married to the very white male executives we were targeting for diversity. And now with DEI, sisters have been very vocal in every media, on every TV news channel, and so on. But guess who benefits from the fruits of your labor? Yet again, sisters, you guessed it, white women. The lady who was the chief marketing officer for Diageo's North America division, Deborah Crew, just became global CEO after the sudden, perhaps mysterious passing of the previous CEO, who was just given knighthood status by King Charles of England in December 2022. That should give you Rothschild family vibes right there. And the death is kind of not good for Diddy, as he has a questionable body count of enemies himself. And that big voodoo tattoo on his back doesn't help really. So, this Deborah lady, the white lady who's the CEO now, she was in charge of all North American marketing, which includes the US. That's overlapping with Diddy, right? That's strange because didn't they give Diddy that title when they signed that deal in 2013? This is where some of his racism allegations may have merit. Who was really in charge of brand marketing in the US? I looked up a LinkedIn profile of a white guy, I think it was in LA, who seems to be the executive in charge of the actual operational aspects of the marketing process here in America. Where's the diversity, Diageo? To me, it makes sense that they have white people making brand marketing decisions while possibly paying lip service to Diddy. In other words, they seem to just let Puff Daddy go to the clubs and other A-list celebrity events to drink and promote the brands, Ciroc and De Leon, but behind the scenes, non-black people were making or deciding how to position Ciroc and De Leon in the marketplace. They don't know us like that. So it is very possible Puffy has a point. They quietly created distribution channels that cater almost exclusively to us. To be fair, I've seen Ciroc in some upscale diverse areas here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And we can't deny that after a long run, the brand couldn't quite sustain itself beyond being a successful, long, trendy upscale fad. But given how long brands like Johnnie Walker and Crown Royal have been around, both of which are popular with us, our community, though not exclusively targeted towards us, Combs can make the case that their lack of diversity among top executives contributed to pigeonholing Ciroc and De Leon into only being upscale urban brands. Even the CEO herself admitted they still have a lot of work to do when it comes to diversity. And I completely agree, based on what corporate information and videos I scrutinized.
We're also very proud of our inclusive and diverse culture. However, there's always more work to do, and we continue to improve and advance our programs.
Again, my dear sisters, my beautiful sisters out there, you gotta be careful about letting your emotions carry you to cape for these other groups besides us, right? Business is war. They love money more than they love us. They're not gonna do you any favors when you champion DEI causes. Only white women, let me say it again, only white women, their wives, sisters, daughters, cousins, mothers, whatever, will benefit. From now on, what I call Black America 2.0 is looking for diversity programs that specifically target us, Black sisters and Black brothers in America, not just sisters. Some of y'all gotta stop with that feminist propaganda as well, by the way. I have helped countless sisters get ahead in the workplace and in their businesses, so we all need each other to stay on code. We can't do it by ourselves out here, people. All right, next up. Did Diddy align his Ciroc and De Leon strategy with Diageo's long-term 2030 premiumization strategy? From what I can tell, I don't think so. The key objective of premiumization, that's a long word, premiumization, is to sustain and grow a premium brand over time, to keep it from the death spiral of a short-term trend. It seems that Puffy's strategy was more focused on keeping his liquor brands quote-unquote cool with the in crowd, instead of positioning the brand to become a habit of the affluent end of the cool jet set crowd for a long time. There's a difference. So in the next video, let's dig a bit deeper into Diageo, because they're not clean. They try to come across as this squeaky clean company, but they got skeletons in their closet too that goes back 200 years. So including that 1980s big old London Stock Exchange scandal that almost brought them down and made them change their name, basically.
The Guinness brand was known to be a family-owned business. At least 3 of Arthur's sons and many of his descendants followed in his footsteps and became brewers. In fact, the company was initially named the Guinness & Sons Company Limited, and as such it was a very momentous occasion when the board selected a chief executive officer that was not a part of the Guinness family. Ernest Saunders was appointed in 1983. Just 3 years later, he became a part of a group of businessmen who were implicated in using fraudulent tactics to manipulate the prices of Guinness stock. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, although he served considerably less time.
So we'll get into that in the next video. Take care. Want to put your product or service in front of the best, brightest, and affluent in our community for the fall holiday shopping season? You know where to find us. Send a message to get started right now. The clock is ticking.